Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Beanie, and today we are going to be talking about how to build a beast budget team with a medium-sized budget. I've done the smaller-sized budget, and you know, a lot of people ask if I could do one, you know, at certain tiers, you know, like 100,000 stubs, 50,000 stubs, whatever. So this one is going to be the medium budget. I set my budget at 50,000 stubs. I don't know if I'm going to classify this as, like, it's not really a countdown. I guess it's more of a tutorial. So yeah, I guess I'll just put it under, like, the tutorial playlist, even though, I don't know, it's kind of sketchy if it goes on there or whatever. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do is I have listed out the guys that I would want to put that I think come under that 50K mark, and then I'm going to go ahead and add up all the stubs that they ended up costing, and I'm going to look and see how much it comes in under that 50K mark, and if we have a few thousand stubs left, we may look to make an upgrade somewhere and replace one of the guys on the team. Okay, and the first guy I went with is somebody that I don't know how I feel about this pick because I'm not a big fan of his secondary offerings, but it's the 85 overall Aaron Sanchez. His per nines are okay, 82, 66, but man, he has that 99 velo and 92 break, and he has a wicked sinker, an absolutely filthy sinker. If he had a slider, man, dude, I would think this guy may have made my top 10 pitcher list. But you know, he doesn't. He only has that 12-6 in the changeup, which, you know, it's okay. The sinker makes that okay. If he was just like 4-seam, 2-seam, 12-6 changeup, it may be a bit different. But since he has that sinker that's just so good, I was like, you know what? I would probably put him on my team if I were making a budget squad of under 50K. And I know like a lot of people may disagree with all this. This is just what I would do if I were putting together a budget team of 50K or less. Okay, and the next guy is the 85 overall James Paxton, and, you know, this is a guy that's been killing it in real life, so, you know, maybe he gets some more bumps throughout the year and gets even better. But his per nines are kind of fringy right now, you know, 64, 75, that's not great. He has good control and, well, not good control, but good walk per nine, which is more important than control. And he has good stuff, too. Once again, he doesn't have a slider, but he has a really hard fastball. I mean, he hits, you know, 97, 98 for you on that fastball, and that's insane coming from the left, being left-handed. And he has a nice little cutter, a good curveball, and a changeup. And, you know, I think lefties are really valuable this year. And I wanted to get a couple in my rotation. And plus, this is a gold that can be had for very cheap because he spent the beginning part of this year as a silver. So yeah, he'd be my number 2 guy in my rotation. And number 3 is 84 overall Steven Matz. And this is another guy whose per nines are kind of fringy, but his stuff is just so good that it makes up for it. He throws super hard, has a wicked sinker, and has 3 good secondary offerings. I've talked about him a ton. You know, I think he was on my other budget squad, so this is a guy that I think you would definitely want on your team. Next is another guy that if I have some stubs left over, I may replace him with somebody better. I'm not sure, but this Tyson Ross card is legit. Like, he has one of the best sliders in the game. His fastball can get up there, you know, 94, 95, maybe 96. I don't know, 96 might be pushing it. And he has a decent changeup to back it up with good per nines. The one thing that kind of drives his card down is the walk per nine and the control. But if you can hit your interface well, you can really mitigate that. I don't really look at those, and that might be making videos like this. That might not be a good thing, just because I'm so good with the pure analog pitching that, you know, control really doesn't affect me that much, but it might you if you're using pulse or meter or something. So that might be something that you want to look at. Another thing is this guy only has 77 stamina, so he's going to tire pretty quickly. And, you know, he may not be able to go, like, super deep into games for you, but I think he's going to be pretty effective for you for 5, and if you can keep your pitch count down, maybe 6 innings. Okay, and the last guy is another guy that I think was on my budget team last time, and that's Carlos Martinez. And you might notice a trend here that I'm going with stuff over per nines, and that's kind of intentional because there are a few factors that I think make per nines not as, they're still very, very important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're not important. They're super important. But I think stuff has kind of surpassed it in importance because it's, this year is very interesting because of things like perks that make the PCI bigger for live series players. And it seems like PCI placement is kind of inconsistent so far this year, and I don't know if it's getting any better. So you know, big PCI or small PCI, I've seen guys square pitches up center greens that have gone nowhere, and I've seen like PCIs that didn't look like they were anywhere near the ball be hit for home runs. So you know, that's something to kind of think about whenever you're putting together your pitchers. That if you have to make the decision between stuff and per nines, I would probably go with stuff. Like pitch selection, velocity, break, stuff like that. But if you can get both, it's definitely worth it because per nines are very, very important. Okay, now we're moving on to relief pitchers, and man, I really wanted to put this 85 Nate Jones in my bullpen. I really, really wanted to because his stuff is so good. He has great per nines, but I don't think I have the budget to do it. 8,000 stubs. I mean, that's almost 20% of my budget right there, so I don't think I can do that. The first guy I put in is Pedro Strop, whose per nines are actually better than the Nate Jones. He has a solid splitter. He throws freaking gas. I mean, he's hitting it at 98 consistently. He has a decent slider. His stuff is great. His per nines are great. Everything you want in a reliever. The next guy is Carter Capps, and I would only use Carter Capps as a righty specialist. I don't think he is super effective against left-handed hitting if the guy that you're playing has a quick bat. Obviously, some guys, you know, will struggle against him just because they struggle against guys who throw hard in general. But, you know, I don't think if you're playing good competition, I think more oftentimes than not, you're going to be sorry that you pitched this guy against a lefty unless you can really spot that slider really well. Because he just doesn't have a changeup, and obviously this is a guy that you want in your pen just because he's so gimmicky and so quirky and he throws really hard, but it's just not, I don't know. I have a righty specialist and I also have a lefty specialist on this list, just because the other guys I think can cover both sides of the plate so well that I think I have room to do that. Just because I think this guy is the best reliever I have versus righties specifically, but he's just not that effective against lefties, and I kind of feel the same way about the left-handed specialist later on. Okay, and now I started spending a little bit more. I'm at 1,300 stubs right here with the Raisel Iglesias. That's what I ended up spending, but I think he's totally worth it. You know, it'd be nice if you were able to get this guy whenever he was still a silver and relatively cheap. But, you know, now he's a gold, but his pitch selection is fantastic. Sinker, slider, fastball, changeup. In my opinion, if you have 4 pitches, that's about the best 4 pitches you can have. He has very solid per nines. He throws his sinker very, very hard. His four seam can run it up to 96, 97. Very good card. Definitely worthy on the team. And this guy would probably be my closer just because he's so effective at limiting home runs because his sinker is so good. Next, I started to spend a lot just because I love this Roberto Osuna card. And I spent 4,000 stubs on him, and I was reluctant to because that's almost 1/10 of my budget. But this Roberto Osuna card is legit, guys. He has maybe the 2 best secondary offerings in the game. His changeup, it seems like his changeup drops as much as a 12-6 curveball. I mean, it'll start at like the middle of the plate and bounce off the ground by the time it gets to the plate. Like, it's insane. And his slurve, it has like a ton of late breaking movement to it. Like, Seems like it gets way deeper into the batter before it starts to make its break than most slurves do. Seems like most slurves, like, they kind of start moving out of the hand, but they start breaking almost right out of the hand, but his moves really deep into the batter. Another guy who does that is Dellin Betances. You notice it more with Betances because he throws harder, and that kind of offsets that, and it makes it really devastating. But this guy throws really hard too. I mean, he throws 96, 97, and that makes that slurve super, super effective. All right, going to the lefties, obviously I'm putting in Jake Diekman. I get him for 95 stubs. He saves me a ton, and he's just an absolutely devastating lefty. I've talked about that. He's maybe my favorite bronze in the game. I love him. So yeah, let's just move on to number 2 because I've talked way too much about Jake Diekman already. All right, my second left-handed reliever is Tony Watson. This is another guy that you can get for relatively cheap, 289 stubs. His per-nines aren't as good as Diekman's, but he has much better control, and his stuff is very, very good. They gave him, I think it's a four-seam. I don't think he had a four-seam last year. So if you want to mix that in with a sinker just to give your opponent a different look, you can definitely do that. But his sinker is devastating. His all-speed stuff is very, very good. And yeah, very good card. And now I'm going to tell you about the lefty specialist, kind of like the Carter Capps of lefties, I guess. And that is the 80 overall Will Smith. And, you know, if he had a changeup, once again, I'd like him a lot more. But he has really good per-nines. He doesn't throw as hard as Capps, so I don't know if it's fair to call him the Carter Capps. I just mean that as in the fact that you don't want to throw this guy against righties. He's more of just a guy that you want to throw in there versus lefties. I thought about putting Brett Cecil in over him, but I don't know what it is about Cecil. Even though he has that decent sinker and you know, pretty good secondary offerings, I just don't find him that hard to hit. Maybe it's because his primary pitch is that knuckle curve, and I don't think that that's a very difficult pitch to hit. I don't know what it is. So I ended up going with Will Smith just because I've struggled against him a little bit more personally. This is one that I could definitely see myself changing my mind on. But yeah, I think the 80 overall Will Smith would definitely be a solid option for a team like this. Alright guys, I'm starting to get kind of high on time, so I'm going to go through a little quicker through the position players. But at catcher, I decided to go with the Yadier Molina just because I've become convinced that catcher defense is much more important this year. Plus, you get a pretty decent bat in there that's going to make a lot of contact. His PCI is going to be big enough. Not going to give you a lot of power, but hey, what can you do? I picked him over Gary Sanchez just because I think defense matters a little bit more this year, and I picked that over the power. At first base, I went big. I spent big because I wanted to get that big bat in my lineup. I decided to go with the 89 overall Anthony Rizzo. This card is just a beast. I think he plays way above what his attributes actually say, and I think he's the guy that's kind of eventually primed to eventually go diamond. With Rizzo, we got a pretty good like 3-hole or 4-hole hitter. With D. Gordon, I think that we get our solid leadoff guy, and we get him for relatively cheap at 685 stubs. You get a guy that makes good contact, not a lot of power at all, will play good defense, and has 98 speed, and you know, he's a game changer on the base paths, and I think that that's worth having at the top of your order. At third base, I decided to go kind of big again and get a nice right-handed power bat with Justin Turner. Even though he has those reverse splits, that's okay. You know, that it's just kind of weird how you end up playing those guys. But he does play up against lefties quite a good bit, as he's doing today. And if he's doing that, he's more than serviceable versus lefties. At shortstop, we get a guy who is very similar to that Justin Turner in the fact that he hits righties very well, lefties not so much, but he's still a right-handed hitter. And that's Aledmus Diaz, the flashback version. Against righties, he's a monster. 89, 80, 85 vision, big PCI, lots of pop. Against lefties, you know, you might have to find another guy to pop in there, but I like this card. At left field, I decided to go with Michael Brantley. He's a cheap gold. You can get him for 3,700 stubs. He has great contact, great vision, big PCI. He has a little pop in his bat, not a lot. He'll play okay defense for left field, probably for left field above average. And he has a little bit of speed to turn those doubles into triples and singles into doubles, whatever. I decided to go kind of big again in center field just because I feel like it gets kind of shallow after the first few top guys that you're trying to get cheap. And ever since that Franklin Gutierrez card got kind of nerfed a little bit, I think it's a little tougher to find. So I got the 86 AJ Pollock for 6,500 stubs. He's a 5-tool beast. He has great contact. He has a good bit of pop in his bat. He plays up a lot. He has that speed. The only thing he doesn't have is good arm strength. And in center field, you know, what can you do? I mean, you've got, whenever you're making a budget team, you have to sacrifice something. And if you are getting, and I said he was a 5-tool guy, I guess he's a 4-tool guy. But if you're getting that 4-tool stud in center field for a budget team, you might have to give up a little something, and if it's arm strength, so be it. In right field, I thought going kind of big and spending big, but honestly, I just couldn't see anybody that was worth it. Like, this Nelson Cruz isn't worth 14,000 on a team like this. This Stanton isn't worth 15. This McCutchen may be worth 9, but I don't think so. And everybody else is kind of out of our price range. So I decided to go with JD Martinez, 366 stubs. You're getting a guy that's not going to play very good defense. He's not going to be super reliable, but he has that big arm strength that can throw guys out at the plate. But you're not getting him for that reason. You're getting him to get a monster right-handed power bat in your lineup. I decided to grab one right-handed outfielder to kind of mitigate that left-handed bat in Brantley just in case you need it. I thought about going with Marcell Ozuna, but he is pretty steep right now for a guy that is going to be sitting on my bench most of the time and only going to hit versus lefties. So I decided to go with Matt Kemp, who is a tad more balanced of a hitter. And he is honestly better versus lefties and a lot cheaper. So I decided to go with him for 260 stubs so I can maybe put that out, maybe get a gold bench player somewhere else. The next two are guys that I think should be on every single budget team out there. The first one is Eduardo Nunez. This guy gives you a ton of value. He can play almost anywhere. He has a ton of speed that you can pinch run with if you need to. He plays up a lot and inside edge. He's a good guy to get on base versus righties. He's not as good getting on base versus lefties, but he has a little bit of pop versus lefties. So if you get a hold of one, you can hit one out with him. And he has good vision too, so your PCI is going to be big enough. I think this guy is amazing. And he's also one of those guys that could go up as the year goes on. He's played very well in the month of April. If he can keep that up, he might get a bump here or there. The next guy is another third baseman, but one that comes with that same amount of positional versatility that Eduardo Nunez does. And he's a switch hitter, and that's the Jose Ramirez. And you can get this card for about 1,400 stubs. He's great against righties. He's decent versus lefties. He has good vision. He's not great in the field, but he has good speed, that 80 speed. I felt kind of compelled to give Diaz a platoon just because he's just not very good versus lefties. So I decided to go with probably the best guy that I could go with as his platoon, and a guy that can play second and third too. That's a Troy Tulowitzki, 88-77 versus lefties, an absolute monster, and defensively he is phenomenal too. You know, 82-76 doesn't sound like a lot, but that 92 arm strength makes everything play up. This is a guy that, you know, if you decide to do a platoon with Diaz, even though I don't even know if you would call that a platoon because both of them are right-handed, but if you do decide to do that with Diaz, I think Tulo is the way to go. Okay, I kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover on my bench as far as like platoons and like who to put where and stuff like that. So I decided to go with just a big bat that I think I could get a lot of pinch hit utility out of. And I decided to go with the 83 overall Victor Martinez. This is a card that I've always really liked. He's always had a ton of vision. He doesn't strike out a lot. And it makes his 74 contact versus righties play up, and that 66 power is enough to get it done. Versus lefties, he's just a maniac. 98, 75 is phenomenal. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to sub in for anyone except maybe Rizzo if you want to, even though I don't think you need to do that. This is a guy that just gives you a really great pinch hit option if you need it. Okay, guys, this team ended up coming out at 46,916 stubs, so you still have 3,000 stubs to play with, and I'll give you the flexibility because I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I would want that would come in that 3,000 stub range, but I'll give you the flexibility to go out and get the guys that you want. You know, a lot of the guys that I like for these budget type teams or BR type teams or whatever. So yeah, you would have, if you put this team together, you would have a few stubs to work with still. And guys, that is going to do it. Please like, subscribe, retweet this video for your chance to win that Eric Hosmer jersey. Guys, I'm less than 300 subs away from 1,000, and I will be giving this bad boy away. Guys, I'm sorry about no video yesterday. I've been battling a bit of a sore throat. I still kind of have it. I kind of struggled to talk, especially when I was trying to talk a little faster in this video. But yeah, guys, I appreciate, you know, your understanding about all that and everything. I'll try to have a video out maybe later today, if not definitely a couple tomorrow. And yeah, guys, I will see y'all on the flip side. Peace.